Hey, this is Una Duncan, and welcome to Goals, Grit, and some woo-woo shit. Today, we are going to talk about the goal of becoming your very own drug dealer. And no, I'm not talking about some sketchy dark alley or worse, dark web shit. I'm talking about dealing yourself up some life-changing doses of endorphins, oxytocin, melatonin, exactly when you need them most. Imagine what it would be like if you just had the perfect emotional state on tap. You got a big presentation. I'll take 2 shots of confidence, please. You're struggling not to lose your absolute shit with your teenager. I'm going to need some empathy and some oxytocin stat. Or you wake up at 3 a.m. and your mind starts racing and you know you're going to need a hit of melatonin to get back to sleep. Well, guess what? You already have that superpower. My guest today is Kevin Chapman. He is the co-founder of the Physical Intelligence Institute, and he's going to tell us exactly how we can use our bodies as a tool to reduce stress, to increase cognitive function, and to generally conjure up the exact emotions that we need to smash our goals and start living our happiest life. If you've ever wondered, how can I get motivated to do my habits? Or how can I get the energy when I'm just freaking exhausted? Or how can I make salad feel fun and rewarding when what I really want is a double cheeseburger? Well, you are going to want to hear this.
Breaking news. Your dream life isn't going to happen because you made a vision board. You're going to need goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. This podcast is about getting clarity on what you want, having the grit to do the actual work, and most importantly, constantly training your brain to be your bitch. Ready to be inspired? Here is your host, best-selling author, Una Duncan.
All right, Kevin Chapman, thank you so much for being here today.
That was a pleasure. Pleasure to be with you and your wonderful energy. Look at you.
Thank you. Let's talk physical intelligence. So the first thing that I want to know is, can you explain what physical intelligence is and how it's different than mental intelligence or emotional intelligence?
Sure. Yeah. So we're really talking about this incredible technology, which is our body. So a lot of us, I think, tend to experience life as a head, and we kind of walk around from meeting to meeting, conversation to conversation, sort of transporting our head. But the reality is our bodies are this incredibly untapped source of intelligence. And so physical intelligence, just to give you an example, think about somebody who's under pressure, who can, for some reason, find a way of relieving that pressure and being present in the moment. People who can manage their nerves when they speak. People who can find motivation when maybe they're a bit down, or find energy, or get up in the morning like you and suddenly be awake and alive in the world. So those are examples of us being physically intelligent. And what we're doing, in effect, is we are strategically detecting the internal state of our body, so our state, and we're doing something with our physiology. That means we can change our state, we can change how we feel, we can even change how we think. So fundamental science behind this is that our internal chemistry largely dictates how we feel, how we behave, and how we think. And often we're at the mercy of the chemistry. So we're nervous. Nerves is a great example, isn't it? Something you're great at managing. We get nervous when we speak, so we tighten up. The chemistry goes all in the wrong way, and we struggle to think, and we struggle to speak, and we struggle to make sound. We change our physiology. We can do some examples. We change our chemistry. So that's fundamentally what it is. It's the next intelligence available to all of us who have a body.
Kevin, you're bringing me right back to acting school, which I know you can relate to, because we would talk about how to get in the right emotion for a scene. And, there was the sort of original stuff where it was like, if you want to think about a scene where your father died or whatever, you think about your father dying and then you really just imagine it and you go deep in. So it's all thought based. But then there was also the idea of, oh no, just put your body in a position as it would be if your father was dying. So I guess the big question we were exploring in acting school and that I want to ask you right now is, I think most people think that it goes, you have a thought, which creates a feeling, which creates a physical state, a heart pounding or shoulders slumping. But I guess what you're saying is actually we can influence our physical state, shoulders back, heart rate calmed, and then that will affect our thoughts and therefore our feelings. Is it the order that we're talking about here, or what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so both of them are true. We're a whole system. So I could ask anyone now listening to have a thought. Think about a difficult task you've got, or something you're feeling overwhelmed about, or somebody you've got an issue with. Just that thought alone triggers a cascade of neuropeptides, and it creates the feeling in us. Okay, so that's what's happening in the body. But the opposite's also true. If we change our physiology, we change the chemistry of our body. So we change the emotion will then change our thought. So if you wanted to adopt a character, and you don't have to be an actress to do this, you might be going into a situation where you want to have a lot of authority and presence. Okay. Now, you're going to want to adopt the physicality of that. So we're going to want to have our feet grounded on the floor. Here we go. We're going to want to center our weight. Okay. We're going to want to have wide open, expansive body postures. I mean, do you want to do a quick experiment just to demonstrate this?
Of course I do.
Okay, so try this. So I'll just show you the power of the body. So if you, we'll just do a little shake out. I'm sitting, but I'll stand in a minute. If you collapse your physicality, and if people are listening, don't do this if you're driving, but have a go at this sometime. Collapse your physicality. So maybe drop your shoulder, look down to the floor. Soften your eyes. And I'm taking a bit of time with this so we can get into the physiology. Now, in that position, I want you to have the thought and say out loud, I feel really upbeat and motivated. Can you say that? I feel really upbeat.
I feel really upbeat and motivated.
I feel really upbeat and motivated. Everything's going to plan today.
Everything's going to plan today.
Everything's going to plan today. Okay, you can shake that off. We'll debrief in a second.
I don't know if I was very convincing.
You're laughing. We'll talk about why you're laughing in a second. Now, we'll do the opposite, and we call this Kate Winslet. But anyone can imagine themselves in the front of the Titanic with Jack's arms around them. And if you take a wide... Do I have Leo on with me? You can have Leo there, on demand. You see Perfect. The power of the mind. So if you take a wide, expansive body position, so we're kind of reversing here the chemistry of the body. I'm going to just stand back. And just adopt that position, look up to the sky, keep those arms out wide. It's harder if you smile. And then I want you to have the opposite thought and say out loud, I feel really down and demotivated. Say that, I feel really down.
I feel really down and demotivated right now.
I'm having a terrible day. Very terrible.
I'm having a terrible day.
You're too good at that. Okay, so that's just a very quick experiment. Let me just quickly talk about what's actually happening, because a lot of people think this is all a bit woo-woo, but fundamentally what's happening, and you'll know this from your background, when we contract our physicality, we kind of trigger our threat response. Okay, we raise our cortisol level. Our body tells our mind, retreat, we're in trouble. And so we trigger the part of our nervous system that's all about fight, flight, retreat. And so guess what? When we try and have uplifting thoughts, the emotions aren't there because we're predominantly dealing with things like cortisol and adrenaline in our system. Now, when we reverse the chemistry, when we reverse the physiology, we actually release oxytocin. Oxytocin is an amazing chemical. It increases our sense of trust, social bonding, connection with others, dopamine for reward, for focus, for motivation. So we're reversing all the chemistry just by changing our physiology. And guess what? We feel different because we've got different internal chemistry. That's what emotions are, they're chemistry. And we even have different thoughts. So the reason that's hard to do, well, you tell me, why was that hard? Why were you laughing?
Yeah, I guess I just didn't believe myself, if I was all being Kate Winslet with, Leo's arms around me and I'm like, today is horrible. I couldn't not smile. I couldn't, you know what I mean? So I just didn't believe myself when I said these things that were so incongruous to my posture.
Yeah, absolutely. So people who adopt contracted body positions as a sort of regular habit, they're generally going to be habitually more depressed. They're going to have that lower status, that lower state. And actually, people who have closed, contracted body postures habitually also experience things more negatively. experiences more negatively. But when you're in a contracted position, the thoughts you're going to generate are going to be very different to the thoughts you're going to generate when you're open, expansive. And, you don't see a character walk on stage and say, I'm having a terrible day. Everything's going wrong. They're going to come out in the physicality. So that's what we're talking about. We can think our way into a way of feeling and behaving, where we can move our way into a way of feeling, behaving, and even thinking. So thought also comes from the body.
So I want to delve more into that for sure. But the first thing I thought of when you said if people have a habitual slumped kind of posture, then they're going to have more negative thoughts, et cetera, et cetera. I think, gosh, isn't that all of us now? Because we're all getting that kind of texting, phone, computer posture. I guess what I want to ask you is, why do you think physical intelligence is maybe more important today than ever?
We're very static. We're very, very static, aren't we? We're very disconnected as well. We're isolated. So all of that's not good for our chemistry. So if we sit for maybe more than 50 minutes, cortisol in our body starts rising. And cortisol and oxytocin go in different directions. So we feel isolated, and we are animals that thrive through connection and being social. That's why we're the dominant species on the planet. 20,000 years ago, there was a mutation in one of our genes that meant we had more oxytocin receptors in our cells that allowed us to detect the emotions of others and start to collaborate and trust and work together. And that's why we're the dominant species. So when we're isolated, which we are, we're on Zoom, so we're getting a little hit from seeing each other, but still I'm alone. My oxytocin levels are not in my favor. And we're not moving. And moving is super, super important for our longevity, for our energy.
So this physical intelligence and accessing our highest physical intelligence, it's not just about, doing the Wonder Woman pose in the bathroom stall before you go into the big high stakes meeting. It's not static, it's movement. Is that what you're
lots
saying?
of movement. Yeah. So another example would be, everyone's heard of serotonin. So serotonin largely associated with, we think about the happy hormone. But actually, serotonin is also largely responsible for our sense of status, our sense of belonging. And interestingly, is also linked to our cognitive flexibility as well. But we produce 95% of our serotonin in our gut. So as you rightly say on your wonderful podcast, it matters what you eat. It really matters what you eat. But we can release serotonin by twisting at the waist. So if I want a little shot of status, maybe I'm somewhere where I don't feel like I belong, like in the gym, right? I do this in the gym.
Yeah.
Because it's full of fit people. Okay, that twisting movement is releasing serotonin in the gut.
So those of you who can't see Kevin, because you're listening, he just stood up and he's sort of twisting from side to side, sort of massaging the gut. Is that what you're doing, Kevin?
That's it. Yeah, you're literally wringing the serotonin out of the gut. So, and of course, serotonin is incredibly important, crosses the blood-brain barrier. Really, really important for our mood and our executive function. Very, very important chemistry. The more flexibility we have in our body, the more flexibility we have in our mind. That's the science.
So if I'm walking into a situation where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a little insecure, that would be one move I could do, is the twisting side to side.
Any twisting movements, grounding of the feet, and of course, breath. So breath is transformational. Okay. So we're really talking about this ability to detect our state. So anyone now who's listening to this could take a moment, they might put their hand on their heart, dropping into your body and actually detecting, what is my current underlying mood? How am I actually feeling? Am I feeling excited? Am I feeling anger, regret, confusion? Passion? What are those feelings? Now that's called introception. And the research says just improving your own ability to drop into your feelings improves both your capacity and your capability. So that's capacity to be resilient, to be adaptable, to be able to flourish, and your capability to access things like empathy. We all want to access compassion, don't we? Particularly in times when everything's going wrong. Maybe we've got home and the kids are kicking off I do that classic thing where I get really angry and I want to be a loving father. But I say, "Arr!" So I need to access compassion and empathy. Now that takes a second, a breath. So just detecting that I might be tight, I might be feeling frustrated from the day, I might be feeling tired, releasing that, breathing into the diaphragm, that's where the magic of the chemistry happens, allows me to be connected with my children. I mean, who's present these days? It's super hard. Super hard to be present. And if you think about it, our mind is really very often not present. Our mind can travel through time. Our mind can travel through space. I can ask you to think about leaving the room, going downstairs, going on holiday. The only thing that's present is our body. So we want to be present for loved ones in our life. We need to drop into our body. And that's where presence happens. So it's a wonderful gift just to practice introspection in a couple of times a day.
Sorry, when you said interception, it's kind of the understanding and recognizing of our own feelings. And I think that for a lot of people, they might not just have even the vocabulary, like that's how a few years ago, I was consuming tons of parenting stuff. And one of the tools that they offer is a feelings wheel where you can show your kid what's the feeling that you're having right now and helping them find the words. And I think actually a lot of adults need that too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, finding the feelings. And you can have a lot of different emotions bubbling away. Or you could have difficult periods in your life where a lot of people say, I don't feel anything. I mean, that's partly self-protection, okay? And for some of us, we grow up in environments where we're told to not show our emotions. Hold them all in, man up, all of those kinds of things. But they actually get stuck in the solar plexus. There's a ganglion of nerves running through the solar plexus. Our solar plexus gets very tight. And we literally don't feel this highway of nerves gets tightened up. So actually things like laughing and crying, it's a great way for us to start to feel our emotions, because when we do that, we breathe into the diaphragm. The diaphragm's a game changer for unlocking all of this ganglion of nerves. The chemistry of emotion starts to reappear and we can be flooded with emotions. So that tightness that we hold in our stomachs can literally stop us from feeling, can make us feel numb. Often if people are traumatized or they're going through very stressful periods of their life, maybe feeling overwhelmed, we tighten up. So again, the opposite is true. When we release, when we can breathe into the diaphragm, when we can start to build that more as a habit, we can allow ourselves to feel. And then you can call an emotion anything you want. There are millions of different words for emotions, but just feeling the emotion. And where do you feel that in your body?
When you mention people who are traumatized, is there any danger in doing this work that people might tap into something they're not ready to feel yet?
Yeah, I think so. All of our work's trauma informed, and if you go and work with, trauma trained coaches, often they will go to trauma through the body, and that question will be, where do you feel that in your body? Now, of course, looking at this nervous system, often we're in a part of the nervous system called dorsal vagal, which means basically everything is shut down. So you're going to open that up and you're going to open the sensations of feelings and emotions. You're going to need to be skilled to be able to deal and cope with that. That's part of the skill. But that can happen in coaching, in leadership, in parenting. We all carry our histories in our body. It's incredible, right? Our history, our experiences, our memories are encoded chemically into our cells.
Can you tell us more about that? So putting aside someone who has trauma that they're dealing with, someone who's just a regular, my teenager's driving me nuts, work is crazy right now. I haven't been on a date night with my spouse in 5,000 years, and I've been trying to lose 10 pounds the last 10 years. So someone who's just living that reality, how would they use this technology to help them work through all of those emotions and challenges?
Sure. So there's only two things we can really control. And one is our time and focus, and the other is our state. So when we're running life like on the hamster wheel, and we're feeling overwhelmed and we're running from one thing to the next, we have to be able to stop. Okay, and we have to be able to access some stillness. So this is why a lot of people are going towards things like meditation, towards yoga, having ice baths, trying breath techniques, playing music, praying, okay? Some kind of spiritual activity that can help you to stop, help you to drop into your body. If you're in an unhelpful state, you're going to have an unhelpful life. You're going to have unclear thinking. So we need to change our state so that we can say, oh, how do I want to run my life? What do I want? How am I going to plan that? So often people feel out of control. There's so many demands. I don't have time to stop. So we can only manage our time and our state. So managing our state is a game changer for people. And often it feels like a luxury, doesn't it? I'm going to spend 10 minutes or I'm going to stop. And I'm going to check into myself. How tired do I feel? Do I feel ready to make some decisions? Am I focusing on the things I really care about in life and the people I really care about? Or am I just running from email to email, request to request, serving other people? So that dropping into the body, taking a moment to reconnect the whole, is certainly the first step for people to get more control over their lives and all the wonderful things you teach, building healthy habits. You need good intention, and that comes from being present with ourselves and self-serving. Now, I can demonstrate that well, but I equally get overwhelmed. So.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm wondering. So that person who's running around like crazy and has all these issues. So let's say that person is able to stop and is like, okay, 10 minutes, and I'm going to stop and I'm going to figure it out. And they drop in and they're like, okay, oh my God, I'm tired. Oh my God, I got a lot on my mind. Oh my God, my shoulders are slumped. Blah, blah, blah. Like, so they tune in, they figure all this out. And then what, Kevin? What do we do then?
Okay, we'll do two things. We would do two things. So The first thing to do, which is great, is an MOT. So it's called a map of tension in the body. And people who do yoga may be familiar with this, or meditation. So we would do a body scan, and we would literally close our eyes, and we would scan from head to toe through our body really slowly. We won't do this at length now. And wherever we find tension in the body, we'll try and do whatever that tension needs to be released. So people might have tension behind the eyes or in the jaw. A lot of tightness in the jaw. It's one of the strongest muscles in the body here. Down through the neck. A lot of people have tension in the neck or in the shoulders. They're carrying a lot in life. So we would scan down through the body and just give the body whatever it needs. Where am I feeling tension? Where can I release? All the way down to the floor. So that's the first thing to do. The second thing to do is to adopt an amazingly magical breath pattern called paced breathing. Now, this is a game changer. Paced breathing, we're breathing into our diaphragm. So our breath is transformational because it's the only part of our automatic system that we can hack. And when we breathe into our diaphragm, we hack our nervous system. So if we breathe, and for people who've never done this before, you put a hand on your chest and a hand on your belly. If you're breathing into your chest, your top hand will go up. If you're breathing into your belly, your bottom hand will go up. So we're trying to move the diaphragm in and out. I like to think of Buddha. There's a reason that he was wise. So we want to be breathing into our diaphragm, and you'll know this from your acting days. Actors, when they're on voice, are breathing from their diaphragm. This is where resonance comes from. So we want to be breathing in and out. 5 seconds is optimal. 5 in, 5 out. It's paced, it's regular, and it's deliberate. So we're taking time.
And is the idea we move both the top and the bottom hand?
If possible, yeah. We want just to move. I'll kind of demo this. So for some people, they may find this quite hard. So just practicing breathing in your diaphragm. Now, that kind of looks a bit woo-woo, but what's happening is, what's magical in here is we're activating the vagus nerve, but we're producing from our adrenals a a high-performance piece of chemistry called DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, I think it's called, which is a banned substance for elite athletes. So we're producing DHEA in the body. That gives us vitality, reduces cortisol, and puts our body into a much more homeostatic state. And the research is incredible. 40 minutes a day of paced breathing over 3 weeks has been evidence to increase your cognitive function, how smart you are, by 62%. That's incredible,
Wow.
isn't it? And decrease
Yeah, really.
your
Just breathing.
stress symptoms by 46%. Improve sleep. So that's because the whole body is changing its internal state. Amazing statistics, aren't they?
Amazing. And I assume, I mean, 40 minutes is what they use for the study, but I'm assuming that there are benefits even if we can only do 5 minutes.
As many as you can. And guess, you can do those in 1 2-minute blasts. So if you're driving a car and you're in a traffic jam, you can choose road rage. You can say, hey, I've got 3 minutes of paced breathing. I'm going to top up my DHEA. So that's a conscious choice. I would recommend those 2 things, MOT and the paced breath.
MOT, paced breathing, and anything else? And then they do a Wonder Woman pose or do the Kate Winslet or just those 2 things?
Yeah, anytime you want to. I think open, expansive body postures are game changers. So spending more time in open, expansive body postures, super helpful. But the other game changer is walking. Okay, so there's actually quite a lot of people talking about, when I go for a walk, I don't know this, my mind is free, I feel great. So the research on walking is very interesting. That when we walk, the action of walking, I don't know if you want to walk, even on the spot, the action of walking, we cross the body's central axis. Okay, that's what happens. So the research, which is equally true if you're on a treadmill, being outside, when we cross the central axis, we basically activate the corpus callosum at the back of the head. It connects the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So we become more creative. We have better ideas, 45% increase in creativity. And equally, when we walk in nature with no purpose and randomly, so taking a 20-minute walk in the morning, also releases neural pathways that we no longer need. So cleaning up the mind. So if we're feeling overwhelmed and blocked and we can't learn anything new, so we've got less neuroplasticity, walking releases space. So that's why going for a walk in the morning, moving the body anyway, is going to be good for us, and breathing, crossing the central axis of our body, releasing neural pathways is a game changer for your day for just 20 minutes. Just little habits that people can put into their days.
So you mentioned earlier that they did this study and they found that people who did that paced breathing for 40 minutes a day had a 60% increase in their cognitive abilities. In your own life or in someone that you've worked with, have you noticed anyone who's applied these techniques and really had a breakthrough?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have. I'm not sure I got a 62%. Yeah, we've used this with teams ourselves in our work. So we've taken executive teams through the same exercises. That breath also helps people become more present. And you also see it gives people access to other high performance chemistry like oxytocin, dopamine for motivation, testosterone for things like risk tolerance, being able to step up, hold space. So when I've seen that breath pattern adopted in meetings and in teams, and you see the dynamics of the team change. People show up, they're more present, they've got more what I call behavioral flexibility. We often get stuck in a mode, don't we? We're driving. And then we need to listen, or we need to inspire, or we need to analyze something. So I see the difference in those people is their ability to flex in the moment through different styles. So do see a lot of that evidence. And people, when they are triggered and get angry, which we all do, we all get triggered, the ability to compose in the moment, which takes 2 or 3 seconds, and then we can respond rather than react. And one of the charities I work with, the Beyond Food Foundation in London, takes people from backgrounds where things have become unraveled in their life. So they've ended up homeless or in prisons or in mental health institutions. They're very familiar with this concept of reacting. Okay, something happened in my life. Because of my history, I react. And then a certain path comes to me in my life, which I don't want. The difference between reacting and responding is partly in our control. So taking a moment to breathe, get control of our nervous system, manage that emotion, and choose the way we want to respond is life-changing for people. And often surprising. People say, wow, why didn't I learn this? We didn't come with a handbook when we were born, did we? There's no manual for this body.
Yeah, well, Kevin, as you're talking, I'm finding that's what I want. I want you to hand me a menu where I can be like, I'll take a little shot of testosterone because I've got to do a sales call. And then I want some compassion, please, because I got to talk to my teenager. And then I want, what I mean? And so just tell me the positions or the movements for each, chemical that I'm looking, because you're basically like choosing the drug that you want and then picking the movement or the
Right,
position. Yeah. That's what I'm getting? Am I getting this right? And do you have that menu for me?
I do. Yeah. And we have the book on that with the whole menu. But fundamentally, you can boil those things down into 4 main states. Okay. The first one would be inner strength. Okay. That time in your life when you need to stand firm, hold space. You need to stand up to somebody. You want to be assertive, but not aggressive. Okay. So how do you build the chemistry of that? Through grounding, through centering. Okay. We can release more testosterone in our body through firming our muscles. Can you believe that? Anytime we firm our muscles, we ask our adrenals to produce a little bit of testosterone. We need that for our confidence, okay? Confidence is a state. If we're not feeling confident, feet on the ground, breath into the diaphragm, releasing tension, muscle firming.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, we access confidence.
And those of you who can't see Kevin, he's kind of making a fist and pressing his fist into his other hand.
We can press any part of our body. Yeah, a minute of that. If you're walking into a meeting where you've got to have a difficult conversation, pressing any part of your muscles, firming any muscles. So that's the chemistry of inner strength. Okay. Then we want to maybe access compassion. Someone in your team suddenly says, I've got a real problem. I need you to listen to me. And you're in this drive mode. And they're like, oh my goodness, they want me to really listen. And people notice, don't they, when you're not listening? So we need to change the chemistry. We need oxytocin fundamentally in our body. So Kate Winslet, okay, or visualizing, thinking about somebody in your life, stepping in someone's shoes, any of those are going to start to change the chemistry, start to release things like oxytocin. We might then want to sell and be inspirational. I've got a sales call. I've got to convince somebody. Flexibility moves. Anytime we flex our body, flex, and move.
So Kevin's twisting and moving around. Yeah.
So more dopamine, more serotonin. And then finally, we might have that state. I've gone through inner strength, authority, compassion, inspiration. And then sometimes we need to be calm, clear, logical. This is a difficult state for me. I suspect for you as well. We're wired. You and me are wired for inspiration. That's why what you do. You wake up
totally,
in the morning, you're alive, right? Okay. So for us, accessing calm, clear, accuracy. You're laughing there. You know how hard it's a stretch.
I definitely need this menu.
So we're going to want to do that through breath. Okay, we want to bring our heart and our mind into a state of coherence. So when we bring our heart rate down through breathing, it brings our very active minds down. And probably genetically, we're probably quite similar. We probably have a lot of dopamine receptor sites in our cells. So we experience emotions, right? We wake up. I don't know if you wake up like me, but it's like, I'm going to the fun fair. So
Yeah.
our base state,
Not at 9 p.m.
not at 9 p.m.,
In the morning, yes. In the evening, no. Yeah.
but we wake up in a heightened state. So it can be more of a stretch for us to access that calmer state. Now, if we want to build relationship with people, we need to be more like them. So if I'm meeting somebody who's naturally more calm, maybe they work in a profession that's more engineering or more administrative, where it tends to attract people who have that calmness, have that logic, have that clarity. And I come busting in the door. Hey! There's not the rapport,
Yes.
there's not the relationship, there's not the trust. So I have to be more like them. So I've gone from authority and a
I have
strength.
I have an example of this, Kevin. I'll just quickly tell you. So, as I mentioned before we got on the call, I moved to this kind of hippie island, and there's so many people I meet now, and they're very like hand on the heart. They really want to look at you when they ask you how you are, and they're nodding. Long hugs, and it's just, and often when I meet them, I'm a bit like, "Why are you whispering?" It's very different. I really have to calm myself down in order to relate on that very kind of chill level. So I am very excited to hear what you're about to say.
So we can all do that. So we can all access all of these parts of our character, and we need them from time to time. And a day in our life, we're going through all of these states. So here we are now being inspiring to each other and generating ideas and trying to inspire other people. And we may go into something completely different in 2 or 3 minutes. I may go into a difficult conversation, or I may have to ring my daughter who's struggling with anxiety. And I can't go, hey, how's your day going? I've just been on an amazing call. They're like, I'm having a terrible day, Daddy. So we've got a second to change our state. And that's what physical intelligence is. Change your state, change your chemistry, change your sort of mode of operating, changes your whole capability. We all have a body, so we can all do it, but it is a skill. It is a skill to do.
Did I miss the how to come down to the calm? So I got inner strength is the like muscle, activating your muscles, grounding yourself, centering yourself. Then there's compassion, empathy. That's the Kate Winslet. That's to inspire. And then there was calm. Was there a third one that I
Yeah,
missed?
inspiration,
Flexibility.
so compassion to inspiration, okay, inspire, and then into kind of analytical clarity. So this is when we
Okay,
want
so what is
to,
that one?
so we want to use our breath predominantly for that. So
Oh, that's the breath.
slow,
Okay.
diaphragmatic breathing, change that state. Slow down, get our heart into a state of coherence. So coherence is
How do
interesting.
we do that?
By 3 breaths. So we can breathe into our diaphragm, one of those breath patterns I was talking about, like pace breathing. Anytime the out breath is longer than the in breath, it's going to help bring our body into a state of coherence. And coherence is our heart coming into balance with our brain. Our heart communicates more to our brain than
Okay.
our brain to our heart. So we need to be coherent in those moments. We want acetylcholine in our body, which is for balance, sense of renewal. It's also the chemistry we want before we go to sleep. So if we're struggling to sleep, because we've got all this chemistry running in us, that balance, that calm, get off the tech, just pulling out dopamine, right? Dopamine. Clearing the mind, releasing tension.
So in order to get heart coherence, it's the breathing pattern that you already told us about, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out.
That's a good breath. Yeah, there's some other breath patterns. That's a good technique for people to start with. And, you can put your finger on your pulse and you can feel your pulse coming down when we start to breathe differently. Then our heart communicates to our brain. So we're talking about brain waves, heart waves coming into coherence. That's what coherence looks like. So we come out of chaos into coherence. So when people say I'm chaotic, say, let's go to coherence.
I can see how, I mean, this would obviously help in interpersonal relationships because you're managing your own state and people will sense that and sense that you're in tune with them. But is there a way that you can tune into someone else's state and maybe in a way influence them? Like if you start, and I'm noticing that, and the reason I'm asking is because I'm noticing you're having that effect on me as you start to slow down and breathe and I start to slow down and breathe. Is there other ways that we can use these techniques to help tune into other people's states or influence other people's states?
Yeah, sure. So what I was doing there was, so when we look at the topic of leadership, if we want to lead somebody, let's take our children, okay? There's a classic example. At bedtime, they're running around chaotically and we want them to be calm and go to sleep. In the morning,
Have you been to my house?
in the morning, they're calm and we want them to be awake. So what we have is a complete mismatch of states. So what you tend to see is kids running riot and the parents going, calm down. We all need to calm down. We all need to calm down. And they don't calm down because they're running riot. And so we can't influence them. And the reason we can't influence them because we're not like them. Okay. Actually, what we need to do is go join them in that state. We need to run around with them for a bit and join them because that's where rapport happens. So the more, as Jungian said, people like me like people like me. So the more like them we are, the more receptive they're going to be. You start running around with your kid and play a game at 7:30 in the evening, they'll love you. So you join them in their world. Yeah, let's play a game. And then once you've got rapport, you can slow down. And in theory, you can bring them down with you. Hey, let's go here. Let's have a bath. Let's go to the bedroom. Let's read a book. The same in the morning. If you pile in with tons of energy, rise and shine. That's what my dad used to say. Feet on the floor, wakey, wakey. It's a mismatch. So that's one way to influence. One way to influence is be more like the other person. So you'll know this if you're working with somebody who's highly driven, entrepreneurial, gets stuff done, right? Makes decisions, takes risks. And you go, well, I need to think about this a bit, they're not, they don't relate. So you've got to raise your energy and then you can influence. The second way is to be really present and really listen. So listening is transformational. People are very often not listened to. And we don't listen well because we have a lot going on. So just listening, sort of operating in a coach state, asking good questions, allowing people to think, often will build rapport and help us to change their state. So we can change other people's states. Some people are so stuck in a state, they might not notice that. And another rather lovely technique, if you're struggling with somebody and they're not even in the room or maybe not even in your life, stepping into their shoes, literally stepping, find a position in the room, step in their shoes, adopt their physicality, adopt the thoughts they might be having, what they're focusing on, adopt their character, see from their eyes what they can see in the world. It'll change your perception of them. It's actually a way of giving compassion. It's the first path to steps of forgiveness. And then when you see them, you may find you're different, because rather than see this person that you're vengeful of or you're really deeply distrusting, maybe you can understand how they came to be like they are. So you're different in the moment will have an impact on how different they are.
And the physical aspect of that is the physically stepping into a different spot in the room and saying,
Yeah,
I'm
I
now
would do that.
physically
I would
stepping
pick a
into their
spot.
shoes.
Yeah, I'd pick a spot. I would say, I have this difficult person in my life, and here they are in front of me. So let's imagine them here. Let's say you have a difficult relationship. Everyone has a difficult relationship. Unfinished business. Just merely thinking about that person. So I'd want to shake that off. Now I'm going to go and step into their shoes. Now this is a skill. So I'm going to step into the shoes of that person. How do they stand? How do they breathe? What might they be thinking? What might they be focusing on? What do they think when they see me? Take some time. We talk about stepping in the shoes of others. This is a fantastic oxytocin release. Oxytocin is the moral molecule, the wonderful work of Dr. Paul Zak. Oxytocin is a game changer for compassion, for relationship, for empathy, for co-creation. And stepping in their shoes, what might that be like to them? Do they have a difficult day? Do they have a difficult home life? Do they have a difficult physicality? Just dropping into that is a game changer. We can shake that off and I can step back into my shoes. How's that changed how I see this person? I've done this technique with my kids who may struggle with somebody at school. So-and-so's being a bully. They're horrible. Blah, 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 blah. So we say, well, tell me about them. Well, actually, their parents are never there and nobody really likes them and they didn't get in the sports team. Well, go and be them. And without really too much direction, it must be tricky. So it's very powerful stuff. And there's a beautiful charity called the Forgiveness Project, which uses these techniques to bring together victims and perpetrators of violence, communities in conflict, so that rather than going into the cycles of revenge and retribution, which we do naturally do, we want to step up and fight. You killed my people, I'll kill your people. We can actually step into the shoes of others and we can behave in ways which come away from those automatic cycles. And we have those in the world at the moment. So many communities have been brought together through that. That's kind of serious stuff, but I'm a big believer of being playful, like you. You need to play with this. Give yourself a bit of space for when it doesn't work, when you try and manage your state and it doesn't work or you don't need to.
Of course. Practice, not perfect. What about someone who would want to use these techniques to achieve their goals? If someone's got big goals that they're trying to achieve, either physical goals or in their career or in their relationship, how could they use these techniques to achieve what they're, or manifest, or however you want to say it? How could they use these techniques to really drive towards those goals?
Yeah, so there's a lot at the moment. If you Google manifestation, it's big at the moment, isn't it? But fundamentally, if we're going to achieve anything in our life, we need two things. We need energy. You talk a lot about energy. It's fundamentally all we have. But we need to master our motivation. Okay, we only have two motivational forces. We have pain, which we like to avoid, and we have pleasure, which we like to move towards. So we're talking about dopamine, a dopaminergic system, and the management of dopamine. Okay, so visualizing goals, which a lot of people talk about, and about 90% of us can visualize well. The visual cortex is linked to the dopaminergic system. So when we visualize something we want in our life, we start to wire the dopaminergic system and the conscious and the subconscious parts of us to behave in ways that are going to pull us towards that goal. So you hear a lot of athletes talk about visualizing running across the winning line or being the best, because there's a lot of pain in achieving. So that's a good way to get started. Visualize what you want. Go into as much detail as you can. Even something as simple as, I want to go to the gym in the morning. Okay, but I get up and I'm like, oh, go to bed. Right? Visualize before you go to sleep in tiny detail everything you're going to do when you wake up. My eyes are open. I put my foot on the floor. I can feel the carpet. I walk into the bathroom. I clean my teeth. There are my shorts. There are my shoes. There are my keys. I walk downstairs. I open the door. I get into the car. Just that practice of visualizing is wiring the dopamine system. You're much, much more likely to do that.
Yeah, I suggest people visualize yourself doing the habit that's going to get you the goal. Sure, visualize yourself being like, a buff or whatever, but more importantly, visualize yourself getting the fuck up and going to the gym. But visualizing is a mental, like I can do that on the couch. I'm doing it in bed in the example you're giving me. Where do we bring in the physical intelligence for this?
Sure. So the other way of wiring the dopamine system is through the winner's pose. Okay. So every time we do something, we want to repeat. So if I've been to the gym, so this is what I'll do. I'll go to the gym. You'll see me in the gym working out with fit people, doing the serotonin twist.
Massive weight.
So I think I don't belong here. I'm okay. When I leave the gym, I do a minute. It looks crazy. I'm running off and there I am down.
Do you do it, Kevin, in the gym?
Yep, in the gym.
So he's
So
walking around like Rocky at the end of Rocky,
at the end,
guys.
okay,
He's
you'll
walking around with his
see
arms
me
in the air.
doing the winner's pose, okay?
Yeah.
A minute of that is, again, conditioning my dopaminergic system to want to do that behavior again. So I'm hacking my dopamine.
But hold on, are you literally doing this in the gym?
I'm doing it in the gym, and I smile because people
And
are
you're not embarrassed?
No, I've done my serotonin twist. I know why I'm doing it. Sometimes I'll do it, towards the door. But I'll spend some time and adopt that posture because I know the science says if I reward the behavior, the dopamine, then I'm much more likely to want to do that again. It's interesting, isn't it? So you do have to be a little bit brave.
Yeah, well, it's we talk all the time about habit loops, trigger behavior reward. And I guess what I'm getting from you, Kevin, is that you can, because a lot of times people are like, I don't know how to make myself feel rewarded when I eat a salad when I really want a chimichanga or whatever, right? Like, how do you make that feel rewarding? It's just not. So then I guess what you're saying is you're like, yes, but if you eat the salad and then you walk around your room being like, hell yeah, and do the winner's pose, then you are going to engineer some feel good feelings. And then you're going to start to associate salad eating with this fuck yeah feeling.
Yep, you do. And that becomes part of your identity, that feeling. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And the science is all there to back it up. We're learning how to work with our dopamine system. And we're very good at working negatively with it by being distracted, looking at our phones. The tech companies know, so we can take control of that.
Right. Or someone else is going to take control if we don't, is I guess what you're saying. Kevin, this stuff is so interesting. Where can people learn more about this science and about the menu of the things that they want to do when they're feeling like they want a little bit more inspiration, motivation, how to motivate themselves to do the habits that they know they've got to do? Where can people learn more?
Sure. Well, the first place, I just have it here actually, is the book, Physical Intelligence, written by Claire Dale and Patricia Payton. This is like a handbook of how we work as a human being. So all of the chemistry, all of the science I've talked about, all of the practices are in the book. It's a handbook for life, that book. And then online, you can come to the physicalintelligenceinstitute.com. There's a lot of free stuff on there, and we have an online program that people can take away as well. So they're the two main sources for that.
That's great. Any final words for someone who is listening today who is intrigued and they would love to be able to manipulate their emotions, their emotional state, just by changing their body versus going to 20 years of therapy and trying to figure out all of their childhood stories and all that sort of stuff. They're like, no, man, you just got to do this. I don't know if I'm oversimplifying it, but do you have any final words for someone who's really interested in being able to do this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so start small. Start by moving and notice how that changes how you feel. So anytime you're feeling down, you're feeling stuck, you're feeling in a corner, okay, just notice, start to move. Okay, and notice how that changes. Notice how much control you have. It's rather liberating, isn't it? We all have a body, so we all got the same equipment. So we can all replicate what other people do that we admire. Why can some people be so happy? How can they find motivation? How can they find joy? Find it in the body, because all of our emotions are experienced in our body. So move. Give yourself permission to move. Give yourself permission to feel. And build your confidence slowly. Build that confidence and that skill slowly. And find somebody to celebrate that with and work with. Find yourself a coach, friend, a buddy.
That's awesome.
Somebody who says, you're not moving. Una, you've been sat on that chair for 2 hours. Come on.
I'm standing, Kevin.
I know, you never do that.
And I have a treadmill test.
To find somebody to get you moving, find somebody in your life who's going to bring out the best, who you can buddy up with, take that journey. And every time you make a small improvement, celebrate. Joy is the winning formula for endurance. Dopamine.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us about this.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And reminder for me as well to apply that every day in my life.
Perfect. Okay, dude, I hope you are sitting up tall, breathing into your diaphragm right now, shoulders back, tits up, as they say in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which, by the way, if you have not seen that show, it's so good. When I was reflecting on this conversation with Kevin, I was kind of thinking of examples of how a lot of us already do this technology intuitively. My grandmother, she was an amazing businesswoman. And she once told me that she used to march briskly up and down the hallway before going into a room for a sales presentation. And I love picturing her doing that, her tiny little heels and her like helmet, spray painted blonde hair. Another example, I have a friend who gets massages right before she goes on a big date because she says it helps her show up like relaxed and feeling sensual and fluid and in her body. And the biggest example that popped to my mind, so I remember I had a little giggle about this when I was teaching the personal trainer certification course. And a lot of my students were like these really adorable gym bros. And they once told me that their favorite time to hit the gym was actually Saturday night. And I was like, what? And they said, oh yeah, miss, because then you get a good pump and you look really good in your t-shirt. It was so cute. But also because they said it made them feel confident. And I'm kind of thinking about it now and I'm smiling because they were kind of cute and vulnerable sharing this strategy with me. But I'm also going back to the self that I was when I was the girl on the dance floor of a club like that, and then seeing all these pumped up bros come in and, kind of finding their testosterone confidence a little bit fucking terrifying. And it makes me want to go back in time and say, okay, guys, go ahead and get your muscle pump. But then what you want to do before you enter the club is Kate Winslet. And then maybe some paced diaphragm breathing. So then they'd come in all pumped up with their muscles, but also being inspiring and empathetic. That's hot, right? Let me know what you think about that important question. And of course, anything else you hear on the show. And don't forget to share this episode with all the cute muscle bros in your life that might need a little diaphragm breathing, and anyone that might want to know how to use physical intelligence to hit all of their goals and basically live their best life. Until next week.
Hey dude, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you can get the next one. And by the way, if you rate and review this podcast, it really helps me get found by other people who need some goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. And be sure to connect and DM me at Una Duncan on Instagram and let me know what you thought of the episode. Chat soon.